Good evening YouTube, my name is Yusuf and you are watching my news channel. Today we are Sunday the 2nd of May and I'm going to start with a little bit of space weather news. So we are in a solar wind stream flowing from a coronal hole, but strangely enough the readings, the actual data differs a little bit from the prediction. Now we'll show it. The Elliott spiral predicted that the density would drop below 5 protons a second, and the solar wind would increase until it actually reaches more or less 600 kilometers a second, or at least above 500 kilometers a second. But if we look at the actual numbers, we can see that the density is actually more elevated, with 20 protons or something like that per second, and the speed is completely off the prediction. I mean, we barely have like 300 kilometers a second. Will it increase or not? Will it increase in the coming hours? Honestly, I don't know. But this is rather strange that the prediction is so erratic, because if we look, we are supposed indeed to have at least 500 kilometers a second on the second, but maybe it will happen later on, the evening or the night even. We will see how this develops even further, but normally we are now, yes, it should have reached at least 500 kilometers a second, so this is a little bit strange. The KP index was estimated to reach a G1 storm, and frankly, I don't see this happening. According to the predictions, it would have reached a G1, a level storm, KP5, but in my opinion, it will hover around KP3, maybe go to unsettled, but I don't see any change, geomagnetically speaking. If you look at the Schumann resonance, we can actually see several spikes, one that happened on the 30th of April, one on the 1st, and one actually today. And this is actually important because the Schumann resonance covers the frequencies of the human brain, the entire spectrum of the human brain, and also the human body. So basically we are talking about the same frequencies. It actually pulsates the most at around 7.5 Hertz, if I'm not mistaken, as you can see here, but usually it covers a wide range of frequencies. Okay, so let's move on to the next. Oh yes, there is actually something of interest, especially for the people who like to watch the night sky. Actually, on the night of the 6th of May and the morning of the 7th, the Eta Aquarids meteor shower will peak at 60 meteors per hour in the southern hemisphere, yes, and 30 meteors per hour in the northern hemisphere. So you have a good chance of actually catching one or several meteors if you are lucky. So I strongly suggest that you actually watch the night sky on the night of the 6th to actually see those meteors if you are actually interested in this. And I will leave a link in the description box of this particular 3D animation of the meteor shower itself. You can pan it, you can zoom it, you can do whatever you want with it. Okay, so let's move to the earthquakes. Whoops, I deleted this page. I have many open. No worries. Let's see. Luckily, oh yes, my Weblinks page is very easy to consult. There you have it. So let's zoom out a little bit. Quick-wise, there isn't much to say. If I put newest first, we have actually a 4.9 somewhere in Indonesia and a 4.6 Bandasi over here. But what is of interest is actually when we put the largest magnitudes, and especially of the previous days, because there was one in Japan, a sizable earthquake, 6.8, which has been downgraded a little bit in other simulations. But here in the USGS earthquake map, It is actually listed as a 6.8. Now, what strikes me about this, it's not the biggest earthquake, magnitude-wise, but there were no foreshocks. If I put, for example, the 7 days all magnitudes, I mean, there's hardly a foreshock before this happens. So basically, this just pops up, the 6.8, bam, without a 5-pointer or anything indicating that a big earthquake was going to happen. This means perhaps that this is actually a foreshock, that this 6.8 itself is a foreshock. So we might see when there are conditions, like for example another earthquake somewhere in the world, a big earthquake in the vicinity of the Ring of Fire, or when space weather conditions become geoeffective, if there's a G1 or a G2 storm, we might see a bigger earthquake happening in Japan. Personally, I hope that I'm wrong, but in my opinion, this is clearly a foreshock. So there you have it. Oh yes, and speaking of earthquakes, something got my attention. There was a little bit of activity in the Yellowstone area, but one station showed really strange readings. This is, don't know what this is. This might just be a glitch, but I wanted to point this out because usually you don't see this like this. This is earthquake activity all over the seismograph. Okay, before I move on to the weather, because I don't want to make this video too long, I want to show something, and I already addressed this in previous videos, but maybe this is the first time that you're actually seeing this. So basically what's happening is there is in the Arctic, in the middle of the Arctic, ice that is melting without any reason. So the Arctic is now at -20 or something like that, and there is absolutely no reason for ice to melt in this particular region. And this happened previous years also. Many years ago there was even a patch of open seawater in the winter, which was at 9 degrees or something like that, and nobody could give an explanation as to why this happened. And the ones that I got from the NSIDC was a laughable explanation. They say that wind at -20 did this, but obviously this was BS. So as you can see in the sea salinity map, we see this clearly. There is under the ice something that is melting, the ice itself, or making the sea temperature rise. As to the origin of this increase in temperature, I don't know, but clearly it is melting the ice. It's becoming almost open sea. And if you look at the temperature, we can see that evidently in the middle of all this ice, which is at -2 degrees below the ice, the seawater is here at -2. We have, strangely enough, this is the blue, I believe is 4 degrees, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just zoom that out to see the scale. I just have to put my beautiful face away. Come on. Yes, like this. Oh yes, here's the scale. So basically blue means almost 4 degrees. We are not talking about -2 in the surrounding, 4 degrees. And many years ago, there was here a patch which was clearly open seawater, becoming open seawater. It happened quickly, and it went almost to 10 degrees in the middle in this particular spot. It always happens at these exact coordinates in the Arctic. So for me, this is a mystery. There are many theories, but which have been postulated by other people, but frankly I don't think that this is the actual explanation. So one theory is of course an underwater volcano at the surface of the sea, but in my opinion this is impossible because we are talking miles of depth, and even if there is a venting event, it would never reach the surface. It would become cold water long before it actually reaches underneath the ice. And it wouldn't be just in one place, you would have it all over the place. So it can be a volcano venting event. There is also another theory about an underwater current that would reach under this particular spot in the ice. But then why just this particular, at these particular coordinates? So this theory also doesn't hold ground, or you would have to see them popping everywhere in the Arctic. So my opinion, this is something else. Some have speculated that this is perhaps Earth's magnetic field, but why would Earth's magnetic field warm a tiny little spot of the Arctic? Because the Earth's magnetic field spans a wide area. I mean, you would have a very big hole if this was the case in the Arctic. And you would also have it in the southern hemisphere. If this was the case, you wouldn't see it just in the northern hemisphere, so to speak. So in my opinion, these theories are not accurate. These are not the explanation for this. I have a theory of my own, but it is far-fetched. But I'm gonna say it anyway. Why keep it for myself? I think this is the entrance of inner Earth. Personally, I don't believe that Earth has a molten core. I really do think there are two openings, one in the northern hemisphere, one in the southern, and that the sea actually goes inside from a particular point in the Arctic. And for some reason, this might be water that is actually going in the wrong direction, a current that actually moves from the inner Earth and actually warms this particular point of the sea. Might be wrong, might be something else, but other explanations simply don't hold ground to explain this. So let's move on to the weather. This is actually very important because Europe has experienced, especially in the month of April, very cold weather, and I am well placed to know it because I actually live in Belgium. And April, the month of April, this month has been, previous month, has been unseasonably cold, and I already mentioned this in a previous video. Nothing has changed. When we look, this is the 10 millibar section of the atmosphere at the polar vortex. We can clearly see that it is again in the wrong place. It is above Siberia over Russia. It spans all the way almost to the Mediterranean region, and there are actually several clusters. Like here, there is a cluster on its own above Greenland. There is something else over here. So over the United States, crossing the United States. This is all because this particular vortex is not in its right place. It's also very weak in velocity. If you look, for example, in the southern hemisphere, this is how it is supposed to be. This is the polar vortex in the southern hemisphere, and you can clearly see that it is vigorous, but most of all it is right where it is supposed to be, above Antarctica. And normally you would expect this to be above the Arctic itself, not over Russia. So clearly something's going on here, and this might be related to the weakening magnetic field of Earth, or something with its axis that actually pushes the polar vortex. But again, these are just theories of this is actually just my own opinion. I can't really say 100% what is causing this. So if we look at the Arctic oscillation, we can see for the month of April that it was hovering around the neutral zone and becoming negative. This means that not only the jet stream is erratic because of the polar vortex, but it is weakening. And this is to be expected since the polar vortex itself is completely non-present above the Arctic. So it will have consequences, and it might go even negative, even more negative in the coming weeks or months if it actually stays like this. So about the origin of this erratic position, it is not caused by a sudden stratospheric warming, because as we see here, there was one in January, but then nothing. So this got me thinking maybe it is because of the wind itself. And if you look actually at the velocity, the only anomaly was during that sudden stratospheric warming in January. But other than that, really there isn't much to see. So it's not the explanation cannot be attributed to normal weather cycle or to a normal pattern. The polar vortex moved to Siberia for whatever reason, and I don't have an explanation for it other than maybe caused by a weakening of our magnetic field or Earth's axis. 1 second. Here! Here! No shade! Okay, that's my mother telling me that the food is ready, so I'm going to end this video. But before I do that, let's take a look at the final item. Yes, the actual weather. So what does it mean for the weather itself? If we look, this is a map of the temperature anomaly of the Northern Hemisphere, and it's actually a prediction. And as you can see, much of Europe is in the grip of the cold. And this is because if I put, let me see. Yes, you can clearly see that wind from the Arctic, the cold is actually pouring, but this might not be the ideal. Let's just put yes. No, actually it is better visible in the anomaly itself. So if I put the weather anomaly, you can see cold is actually pouring in from this side, and it is actually cooling off Europe, and it comes straight from the Arctic. On the other hand, these warm westerlies, which are supposed to go to Europe, are actually blocked, and it goes actually into the Arctic. So we have a strange situation where cold is pouring out and warm air is actually pouring in from this side. Consequently, also in the US, cold from the Arctic is invading the US. So, but most of all, this is visible over Europe. As you can see, it just keeps pouring out of the Arctic, and this is what's actually cooling, but also in the United States, cooling actually Europe, and at the same time warming this particular side of the Arctic and Greenland. If this stays like this will have consequences in summer, especially for the Arctic ice, which is already very thin and very low in concentration. So this might affect the sea ice of the Arctic, the melting season in the summer, but also the weather over Europe. We might have a cold and wet summer if conditions stay like this, if the polar vortex does not leave Siberia to go over the Arctic. So I will keep monitoring this situation, but right now, as you can see, it really doesn't look good. Cold weather is predicted to persist over Europe, unfortunately, also in parts of the United States, and consequently, the heat actually, which is supposed to go to the mid-latitudes, to Europe, is actually blocked by all that cold air, which acts as a lid, as you can see. This is why there is actually warm anomalies in south of Europe. Think of Greece, the recent warm anomaly they had there, all because of this erratic position of the polar vortex. So this is it. Look at this. I mean, how it stretches entirely. Europe is in the grip of the cold. This is it, people. This is the end of the video. Before I end this, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, otherwise you will miss any future videos that I make. Make sure that the notifications are on, so you get actually the notification. And also don't forget to hit the like button if you actually enjoyed this video. And I guess I see you another time. Yes, the philosophical quote of the day before I end it. So today is number 33, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, running away can be shameful, but not when it evades annihilation. So when you have a difficult battle and you have to retreat, but you can't for some reason, it means that at that particular moment you are actually fighting your own ego, because it is more wise to escape a very dangerous situation than foolishly fighting until the end. This is it, people. Hope you liked this video, and I guess I'll see you next time. Be safe, everyone. Bye bye.